Hey, what's happening, gang? Bobby Spellman here to welcome you to a very practical episode of Trumpet with Bob. I live in New York City, and here in New York, most people live in apartment buildings. Oftentimes, people are living very close to their neighbors, and the walls may not be very thick. So, over the years, I've been asked many times by my students, "So Bob, I'd love to practice more, but I'm afraid that my neighbors are going to go insane. People are hitting the ceiling with their broomsticks and calling the police. What do I do? How can I play the trumpet without aggravating my neighbors?" And I've got a couple of answers. It's not always easy. There's always a compromise to be made. When you really stifle the sound of the trumpet, you'll get a lot of back pressure. So the goal is to try to find that middle ground between bringing the volume of the instrument down without giving yourself too much of a hard time while you're trying to play. The first thing that everybody does is they get what's called a practice mute. Now, practice mute looks like this. The goal of the practice mute is to eliminate as much sound from the trumpet as is possible. Unfortunately, you also reduce a lot of the air that's coming out of the instrument, and it makes it extremely difficult to play. A practice mute does quiet the instrument quite a bit, and it sounds like this. But the practice mute changes the intonation of the instrument, and most importantly, playing in the low register or the upper register can become very difficult. In fact, the reason I have this practice mute is one of my students hated it so much she gave it to me. So here it is. Now, this is definitely a viable option if you're trying to quiet down the horn and you don't mind a little extra back pressure. But it's not my favorite choice because it takes out so much of the sound. Another option is what's called the Yamaha silent brass system. This, in my mind, is miles ahead of the practice mute, because the silent brass system, first of all, will reduce the tone of the instrument in the air. It'll take the volume way down, but the Yamaha silent brass system allows you to plug some headphones into a little box that plugs into a mute that will go into the horn, and that will enable you to hear your sound as though you're playing in a concert hall or something like that, even though you're playing very quietly in your bedroom or wherever you happen to be. The other thing about the silent brass system, the Yamaha system, that works very well is that they've designed it in such a way that a little bit more air can come out without causing too much excess noise. So it feels a little bit more natural to play. Now, that being said, it still is a little bit more of a stuffy way to play. There's just no good way to make it comfortable to play as though you're playing, without a mute on there with something that's going to silence your horn almost completely. One other option that I always give people that I think is the best option for you, for many of my students, is just the simple Harmon Mute. Good odds you already have one. It's a beautiful sound, and it's going to bring the sound of the trumpet way down. Now, the Harmon Mute does carry quite a bit, so it's certainly not a silent brass situation. It doesn't. It's not a practice mute in the sense that it's not going to bring your sound down to zero, but it will bring it down to about what it would be if you're listening to television. So that's going to sound a little bit like this. Now, obviously, depending on how loud you've got the computer or whatever you're listening to me on, that's going to sound different. I'm not giving you a really good idea of what the decibels would be in your apartment, but 9 times out of 10, you put a Harmon Mute in there, it's going to give you a lot less resistance, it's going to bring the volume of the horn way down, and it sounds beautiful. The ideal situation if you're living in an apartment complex with a bunch of neighbors is for all your neighbors to come out and say, "Wow, every morning I wake up and I just hear the beautiful sound of somebody playing the trumpet, and it brightens my day, and the rest of my day I know is going to be great because I started off with the majesty of musical sound wafting through the air." So hopefully you've got those neighbors, and that will help out a lot. In that case, definitely stick with the Harmon Mute because they're going to say something like, "What is that, Miles Davis in there? Wow, this is great. I'm glad I moved into this building with a trumpet player right next door. This is really cool." That's the ideal circumstance. Is that who your neighbor is? I don't know. There's a lot of neighbors out there. Some of them are very difficult. If your neighbor is especially difficult, I would look into getting the Yamaha silent brass system. Only problem with that is it's a little bit expensive. If you want a cheap option, get a practice mute, but be prepared to have a real bad time with it. And if you want to just get a beautiful smoky tone out of the trumpet and you think that will lower the sound of the instrument enough that you can practice in your apartment, get yourself a Harmon Mute. That'll do the job. Harmon Mute is way quieter than the straight mute and many of the other mutes, and it doesn't sound super hokey. And you can practice in a way that will make you sound good while you're practicing, which is going to make you want to practice more, and that's the ultimate goal. All right, gang, so that's my advice on how to practice in an apartment building. Let me know in the comments if you've got some better ideas, because I bet a bunch of people have some really clever ways of practicing in an apartment without aggravating your neighbors too much. All right, gang, thanks for checking this video out, and we'll see you on the next video. See ya. Trumpet with Bob. All right, friends, thanks so much for checking out this video. I hope it helps in your pursuit of the majesty of musical self-expression. If you like what we're doing here, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Big thanks to all the new subscribers. We really appreciate your support, and we're going to keep putting out some new videos for you. The Ridgewood School of Music is now accepting new students for lessons online as well as in person in the Brooklyn, Queens, and greater New York City area. You can find us on our website at www.ridgewoodschoolofmusic.com, and you can send us a message, and we would love to help you achieve all of your musical dreams. For some more musical fun, you can also follow me, Bobby Spellman, on Instagram @BobSpellman, or in any of the other social media platforms listed in the description below. Thanks again for checking out this video. Happy practicing, and we'll catch you next time.